momentous and perilous escalation of the global confrontation, President Donald Trump announced that the United States is deploying tactical nuclear weapons to the United Kingdom for the first time in over 15 years. The decision, revealed in a primetime televised address from the Oval Office, represents the most significant American nuclear posture change in a generation and placed the world on a hair trigger not seen since the darkest days of the Cold War. The move is a direct and thunderous response to the formalizations of the Russia-China-Iran security axis and Russia's preceding massive missile strikes on Ukraine, fundamentally altering the strategic landscape of Europe and pushing the standoff with Moscow into the nuclear domain. President Trump, seated at the Resolute desk, spoke to the nation and the world with a somber but defiant tone. He began by framing the decision as a regrettable but necessary action in the face of unprecedented aggression from what he termed the axis of revisionist powers. He stated for weeks, the world has watched as Russia, aided and abetted by communist China and the terrorist regime in Iran, has waged a campaign of brutal terror in Ukraine and has threatened the stability of the entire world. They have formalized their unholy alliance, a coalition of dictators and despots united only by their hatred for freedom. They have mistaken American patience for American weakness. Tonight, let me be clear to the leader in Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. Mistakes ends now. He then made the historic announcement to restore deterrence, to protect our NATO allies, and to ensure global peace through American strength. I have authorized the Department of Defense to forward deploy a contingent of tactical nuclear assets to the United Kingdom. These weapons are defensive in nature. They are there to guarantee that no adversary ever again believes they can threaten our allies or our interests without facing overwhelming consequences. To President Putin, I say this: we do not seek conflict, but we will not shrink from it. Do not test the resolve of the United States of America. The operational details of the deployment were outlined shortly after the president's address in an emergency press briefing from the Pentagon. Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth confirmed that the United States Air Force would be reactivating nuclear storage facilities at RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk, England. This base, which housed American F-35A Lightning II fighter jets, is a key strategic hub for U.S. air power in Europe. Secretary Hegseth explained that the deployment would consist of the latest variant of the B-61 gravity bomb, the B-61-12, a highly accurate, variable-yield tactical nuclear weapon designed to be delivered by stealth aircraft like the F-35. This deployment is a prudent and necessary step to rebalance the strategic environment in Europe. Secretary Hegseth stated, flanked by the Joint Chief of Staff, Russia has engaged in reckless nuclear saber rattling for years, and its recent use of advanced hypersonic weapons in a terror campaign against a sovereign nation requires a firm and credible response. By placing these assets under dual key control with our steadfast British allies, we are sending an unambiguous signal that any attack on NATO is an attack on all and will be met with a response at a time and place of our choosing, using any and all capabilities at our disposal. The diplomatic justification for this profound step was articulated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who addressed an anxious international press force. Secretary Rubio stressed that the decision was made in full consultations with the United Kingdom and key NATO allies. He argued that the move was not an escalation but a re-escalation designed to re-establish the deterrence that had been eroded by Russian aggressions and the formations of its new axis. Peace is not preserved by weakness or by words alone, Secretary Rubio asserted. It is preserved by the credible demonstrations of strength. The presence of American tactical nuclear weapons on British soil makes the American nuclear guarantee to Europe tangible and undeniable. It complicates the strategic calculus of any potential aggressor. This is a reversible step. If Russia de-escalates, ceases its war in Ukraine, and returns to the path of responsible international behavior, this posture can be reconsidered. But as long as Moscow and its partners pursue a path of confrontation, the United States will ensure that defense of the free world are unbreachable. In London, the British Prime Minister addressed Parliament in an emergency session, confirming the joint decision and facing a storm of political protests. The Prime Minister defended the move as a vital contribution to a national and collective alliance security. In the face of a newly aggressive Russia and its global partners, we cannot afford to be complacent. The United Kingdom has always shouldered its share of the burden in defending our shared values. Agreeing to host these defensive assets is a testament to the special relationship with the United States and our ironclad commitment to the NATO alliance. This is a grave but necessary step to ensure that the peace and security our continent has enjoyed for decades is preserved for generations to come. The announcement was met with fury from opposition parties and anti-war groups who immediately called for mass protests, decrying the move as making Britain a primary target in any future nuclear exchange. The reaction from Moscow was apoplectic. The Kremlin released an immediate statement from President Vladimir Putin himself, read by his spokesperson on all state television channels. The statement accused the United States of nuclear blackmail and of pushing humanity toward the abyss of a third world war. Putin's message declared that the deployment of American nuclear weapon in the United Kingdom would be treated as a direct and existential threat to the Russian Federation. It announced that Russia was immediately suspending its participation in the New START Treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms control agreement with the United States. Furthermore, the statement warned that Russia would take all necessary military technical countermeasures, including the deployment of its own tactical nuclear weapons to forward positions, specifically mentioning Belarus and loading nuclear-capable missiles onto its naval vessels in the Atlantic and Baltic Seas. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova delivered a separate vitriolic diatribe warning the British people that their government had turned their island into a nuclear hostage for American imperial ambition. China and Iran quickly joined Russia in their condemnation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson in Beijing called the deployment a profoundly irresponsible act that shatters the global strategic balance and will trigger a new unrestrained arms race. The spokesperson urged the United States to pull back from the brink and accused Washington of hypocrisy, promoting non-proliferation for others while recklessly spreading its own nuclear weapons abroad. In Tehran, a spokesperson for the Iranian government called the deployment proof of America's aggressive nature and used it to justify Iran's own military deployment. The great Satan shows its true face, the spokesman declared. It threatens the world with nuclear fire. This only confirms that free and independent nations must possess all necessary means to defend themselves from American tyranny. The announcement created deep and painful divisions within the NATO alliance. The leaders of Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, who feel most threatened by Russia, issued a joint statement cautiously welcoming the American decision. They describe it as a sobering but essential signals of American commitment to Article 5, NATO's Collective Defense Clause. They argue that only a credible nuclear deterrent could effectively counter Russia's geographic proximity and conventional military mass. However, in Western Europe, public and political reaction was far more negative. While the governments of Germany and France issued carefully worded statements reaffirming their commitment to alliance unity and understanding the rationale for the decision for the establishment of de-escalation channels with Moscow. The move reignited fierce anti-nuclear protests against the continent, with hundreds of thousands taking to the street in Berlin, Rome, and Brussels, demanding the removal of all nuclear weapons from European soil. The deployment meant to unify the alliance against a common threat, instead exposed a deep chasm in risk perception between its eastern and western members. Within the United States, the president's decision ignited a political firestorm. Republican hawks, led by figures like Senator Lindsey Graham, lauded the move as a bold and necessary restoration of American leadership. President Trump has shown the world that America is back, Senator Graham said in a statement. For too long, our adversaries have acted without fear of reprisal. Today, the fear of God has been put back into our enemies. This is peace through strength. However, the move was fiercely condemned by Democrats and a faction of non-interventionist Republicans. The Senate minority leader called the decision a catastrophic gamble with human civilization, made without the consent of Congress. He warns that it dramatically lowers the threshold for nuclear use and could lead to a cataclysmic miscalculation. The debate paralyzed Washington as lawmakers on both sides accused the others of either appeasement or warmongering. The world now finds itself in the most perilous international crisis in over 60 years. The deployment of U.S. nuclear weapons to the United Kingdom has crossed a critical line, transforming the conflict from a regional war in Ukraine to a global ideological struggle, and now to a direct nuclear standoff between the United States and Russia. The action and reaction have created a feedback loop of escalation, with each side's defensive move being interpreted by the other as an act of aggression. Military forces around the globe were placed on their highest level of alert. The risk of a mistake, a technical malfunction, or a desperate decision triggering an unthinkable exchange is now terrifyingly real. The president's announcement, intended to project ultimate strength and deter conflict, has instead thrown the world into a new and terrifying era of nuclear brinkmanship, leaving humanity to hold its breath and pray that its leader can find a path back from the edge of the abyss. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. That is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to Soking Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build the show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.